A single event, just one parade, may have changed the global balance of power. It happened in Beijing under the shadow of history, but its message was aimed squarely at the future. This was not just a display of military might. It was a declaration to the world that the age of unquestioned American dominance is coming to an end, and a new era has begun. On the 3rd of September 2025, the eyes of the world turned to Tiananmen Square. The occasion was the 80th anniversary of China's victory in the Second World War. But what unfolded that day was far more than a commemoration of the past. It was a carefully orchestrated demonstration of power and ambition. For hours, the world's cameras captured images that will go down in history. Thousands of soldiers marching in flawless formation, columns of cutting-edge weapons rolling through the heart of the Chinese capital, and futuristic drones swarming the skies like something out of science fiction. Fighter jets roared overhead. Hypersonic missiles glided past the crowds, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with the weight of the moment. But the most important part of the parade was not what the world saw on the surface. The true message of this event lay behind the visuals, in the symbolism, the timing, and the company that stood by President Xi Jinping on that day. This was not only about honoring history, it was about showing the world that China is ready to lead, ready to reshape global power, and ready to challenge a system that for decades has been dominated by the United States and its allies. The scale of the parade was beyond anything China has staged before. Tens of thousands of troops marched in perfect synchronization, their steps echoing across the square. Behind them came waves of military technology that left analysts stunned. There were sixth-generation stealth bombers capable of carrying nuclear payloads across continents. There were the latest DF-series hypersonic missile systems, engineered to evade any missile defense and strike with unmatched precision. There were autonomous ground vehicles, cyber warfare units, and AI-enhanced weapons platforms designed to operate without human intervention. And then there were the drones, hundreds of them, moving as if with a single mind, forming patterns in the sky, shifting formations with flawless precision. Experts watching from around the globe admitted that they had never seen anything like it. These weren't experimental prototypes shown for effect. According to sources cited by Reuters and Bloomberg, China is already mass producing these drones in numbers that dwarf anything the West has attempted. Entire factory lines are dedicated to building swarms of combat drones that, in the event of conflict, could overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer quantity. And as the weapons rolled by, as the skies thundered with the roar of jets, the cameras turned toward the grandstand, where the political symbolism was impossible to miss. Standing beside Xi Jinping were Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Their presence was more than ceremonial. It was a message. It told the world that a new axis of power is taking shape, an alliance of nations determined to stand against what they call Western dominance. High-level delegations from across Asia, Africa, and Latin America were also present. Representatives from Brazil, South Africa, and the expanded BRICS alliance watched from reserved seats. This was not just a military event. It was a diplomatic theater, carefully designed to project unity, strength, and ambition. President Xi spoke briefly but powerfully. He said the world is now at a crossroads: peace or war, dialogue or confrontation, win-win or zero-sum. His words, though calm, carried a sharp edge. To many analysts, this was a warning, an assertion that China is no longer willing to play second to anyone. What makes this moment historic is not just the show of military strength, but the geopolitical reality behind it. For years, the United States has counted on India as a counterweight to China in Asia. But recent events suggest that calculation may no longer hold. After years of tariff disputes, diplomatic friction, and strategic mistrust, India has been quietly moving closer to both China and Russia. This is the nightmare scenario for Washington, a partnership that combines China's manufacturing power, Russia's energy resources, and India's vast manpower and growing industrial base. Together, these nations form a bloc that rivals the West not only in population and geography, but increasingly in technology and economic power. According to the Financial Times, this emerging alliance now represents a combined population of more than 3 billion people and an economy that, in purchasing power terms, surpasses that of the G7. And while the United States still maintains the most powerful military on Earth, The gap is closing faster than most policymakers ever imagined. For decades, America's advantage rested on technology, on building fewer but far more advanced systems than anyone else. But China is rewriting that strategy. Instead of focusing solely on costly high-tech platforms, Beijing is producing enormous quantities of affordable, capable weapons, drones, missiles, naval vessels, and cyber units. The result is a simple but chilling equation. As one unnamed Pentagon official admitted in a quote leaked to the Washington Post, "They can overwhelm us with sheer numbers." This shift is visible not only on the battlefield but in the realm of finance, where China and its partners are preparing a move that could hurt Washington more than any missile. Behind closed doors, Chinese, Russian, and Indian officials have been discussing the creation of a financial system independent of the US dollar. According to the Wall Street Journal, China plans to use its digital yuan as the backbone of this new system, while Russia and India are already testing trade settlements in their own currencies. If this system succeeds, it would deal a severe blow to the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency, a cornerstone of US global influence for nearly a century. Western leaders are alarmed. Emergency strategy sessions have reportedly taken place at the Pentagon, in NATO headquarters, and in European capitals. Military analysts are warning that America's decades-long technological edge is no longer guaranteed. A recent Rand Corporation report stated bluntly, if current trends continue, the US could lose its strategic advantage within 10 years, or sooner. And yet, the West is divided. Europe, which Washington needs as its strongest partner, is fractured by competing interests. Germany fears losing exports to China. France is hedging its bets, seeking influence in both camps. Italy and Spain are reluctant to engage in confrontation. This lack of unity plays directly into Beijing's hands. The images from Beijing have left the world with an unavoidable conclusion: the unipolar moment. The era in which the United States stood unchallenged at the top of the global order is ending. The parade was not just a show of force. It was a signal, a declaration that the 21st century will not be dominated by a single power but shaped by a new multipolar reality. This is more than geopolitics. It is the start of a profound transformation in how the world is organized, how economies function, how military power is projected, and how influence is measured. For the United States, the challenge is existential. It must decide whether to rebuild alliances and reinvest in its own capabilities, or watch as the center of gravity shifts inexorably eastward. The question now is not whether a new Cold War has begun. The question is whether the West can adapt in time, or whether the balance of power has already tipped beyond recovery. One thing is certain. When historians look back on this moment, they will not see it as a parade. They will see it as a turning point, a day when the world's old order gave way to the new. The world has changed. The question is, how will America respond?